get started with some questions. The first one comes from Tim O'Malley of Irish Illustrated. Coach, what are your initial impressions of Nick McLeod? And though you spent winter conditioning with them, also, what are your impressions of Ben Skoranek and Isaiah Pryor?
Yeah, when you take, fifth years and a transfer that's coming in with 1 year, obviously you need to be right, and it seems by all indications, we got a great glimpse of Ben. Certainly with him being here early, and Pryor, both of them were the leading point recipients this summer in their position groups. Pryor had over 1,000 points as a DB, and then amongst the tight ends and wide receivers, Skoranek just edged out Kevin Austin with about 1,200 points. McLeod obviously didn't come in at mid-semester, but so to answer your question, those two kids outstanding, Skoranek and Pryor. McLeod, this was a step up for him, and a step up in terms of the training, and he really took hold of it and made great strides throughout the 6 weeks that he was here. To the point where he finished the season, our 6 weeks, in the 650 range. Just to give you an indication, 750 was the Hamiltons and Crawfords. So he did really well in making up for some lost time. He's long, he's athletic. So those three guys, really, really pleased with where we are with their presence in our program.
The next one is somewhat of a follow-up to that. It's from Eric Hansen of the South Bend Tribune, but obviously it's very early, just one practice in, but is there anyone who's kind of jumped out, especially among the freshmen? He also asked about grad transfers, but you just addressed them.
Yeah, we clearly know, from an offensive standpoint, I can tell you guys that are going to contribute. There's more time that's going to go into evaluations, but Mayer is a guy that has innate ability, size, quickness, escapability as he releases off the line of scrimmage. He's a pretty impressive young man in everything he's done. Tyree, over 1,000 points this summer. Lot stronger than we thought in terms of overall, lower body strength. He's a guy that, he's not a specialist. You know what I mean? He's not a guy that you just plays in the slot or handoff sweeps. He's a guy that can run, the football for you downhill between the tackles too. He's not going to get 30 carries. Don't get me wrong, but he's a guy that's going to play. As a freshman, he's been impressive. Bauman, here's a guy that, if he's not, coming in at the same time as Mayer, he's probably, everybody's talking about him. He is a really good tight end, and he's a guy that I don't think we can hold off the field either. Very, very impressed with him early on. Those are some of the offensive guys from, and I would say that offensive linemen, they all, it's a process for those guys, but early glimpses. Carmody has got some really nice traits that I think are going to translate very well for us. From a defensive standpoint, the corners look really good. I mean, they've got length. They're all young, but they're all going to be, guys that are going to compete for us. Whether they play as freshmen or not is certainly not needed, but we've been impressed with the corners in terms of their length and athletic ability.
And the next question comes from Tyler James of the South Bend Tribune. And with an unusual spring training and then, summer being a little different than normal, what is the plan for ramping up the physicality and practice and still making sure that the players physically are ready for that?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't easy. I mean, we're fighting through a lot of different things at one time. Our guys haven't tackled since December, so I'm concerned with all of these things. And I'm looking at our player loads. I'm looking at all of the things necessary to make those kinds of judgments. Look, I've been doing it for 30 years. I feel like a first-year head coach. So, everything that I'm doing, I'm looking at, some of the science that we have. I'm talking to our players at great length after practice to get a sense of where they are. Meeting with the staff, trying to get as much information as possible as we, plan out what we're doing. We have a schedule, but I think it's so important right now. It's prudent to be extremely flexible in terms of what you're doing. We're on track. I mean, today, again, we're just in helmets. We did some pretty good things yesterday. I think Coach Bayless did a really good job from a conditioning standpoint. The guys handled some high player loads. We'll go at it hard again today. They get almost 24 hours, so it's unlike other camps where they sometimes don't get that full 24 hours because you may come back, with a walkthrough or something like that. So we'll see how they respond going into day 3 when we put the pads, the uppers on tomorrow. But so far, so good.
Your next question is from John Finneran from the Associated Press. What improvements have you seen from Ian Book in his physical abilities and his leadership these last 6 months?
Well, his leadership has been outstanding. It was really good last year. It's even better now because I think he's developed a single-minded focus in terms of what he wants this team to accomplish and what he wants for him. It's a championship or bust. And I think everything that he does is so intentional on a day-to-day basis. He's not distracted by the noise of the position in which he is a leader and a quarterback at Notre Dame. I just think he's so much more comfortable with being in the position that he's in more than anything else. He's stronger, he's fitter, he's going to have a great year. There's no doubt in my mind that we're going to see the best version of Ian Book this fall.
Your next question is from Mark Skoll. What's been the most surprising thing for you during this 5-month process?
Is that a trick question? Surprising? Everything's surprising. I mean, each day is a surprise. What has been the most surprising? I think, just sometimes the inability to grasp how important it is that each individual, understands that, this is a different time and we have to make adjustments. And there are adjustments in your behavior, there are adjustments in your life, there are adjustments that we all have to make to get through a very difficult time, both from a health standpoint and from a social justice standpoint. So, I think it's just been one where, I think you have to just be thinking about the most important things, and that is how you can affect change. How can you help during this pandemic? And I think we all know what those basic principles are. How can you help, eradicate, racism. I mean, I think we know what those basic tenets are. And what's surprising to me is that some people don't seem to understand those are basic principles that we all should be following. And we get caught up in emotions, and we get caught up in amendments, and we get caught up in politics, and we forget to go and look at the basic principles.
A follow-up from Mark. Notre Dame seems to be one of the few schools without many positive tests. Why do you think that is? And how many other schools have reached out to ask about Notre Dame's protocols?
Well, you're not going to go through a pandemic without having positive tests. So, we're going to continue to be transparent. We're going to have our good days, and we're going to have our bad days. I think we've been vigilant when it comes to education. I think we've got an informed student body. We've got one that understands that their behavior will dictate in a large degree how positivity rates go up and down. So, again, many are concerned about, what it's going to be like when campus gets going. This is really about, practicing good habits. And I think if you do that, I think you have a good chance of being successful in a very, very difficult time. And I think Notre Dame so far has understood that. Now, we saw this, right, when we flattened the curve as a country, and then we got all giddy and thought we had it licked. This is something that you have to do for a long time. This is hard. I mean, this is where you've got to really show some grit and stick with it day in and day out, or it's going to jump up and really get to you. And we've seen that nationally. So good start, long way to go, both for our football team and for our campus. And we've got to stay vigilant.
The next question is from Joshua Voles from 1 Foot Down. From just a pure football standpoint, what kind of conversations are you having with the seniors and leaders of the team about the on-field goals and expectations?
Well, those are probably the easiest conversations. Our mission is clear, is to see them graduate and win a national championship. So I don't think that one really is one that takes very long. They're not here for any other reason. It's getting them focused squarely on that without the distractions of everything else that's going on. And so that's why it's so nice to get back to practice, so we can get back to our normal process and our normal routine. And that's going to take a little time. We've only had the one practice, so I'm anxious to build on a number of practices and get into the heart of this, so we can get truly to our process, our day-to-day process, because we really haven't been in that for a very long time. But clearly with our veterans, some of them had some questions about, if we play and we stop, what's the eligibility? Is my scholarship going to be honored? The typical questions that they should have. I mean, and we don't have all the answers for them right now. The NCAA is trying to, put together some answers for them. I told those guys, we're gonna get them all the information we can once we have it. But there are some things that we don't have answers for, and unfortunately, that's life, and we've got to move on until we get those answers and put them behind us and focus on what we do know, and that is we got a football season to get ready for, and it's time, and let's get going on that.
The next question is from Tom Van Haren from ESPN. Do you have any concerns with keeping the early signing period where it is in December? And what do you think still needs to be addressed with the recruiting calendar with the dead period in place?
No, my head is blowing up on that one, Tom. I think some of the immediate pieces to that are, certainly, the early signing period. Now we're out until September 30th, right? In terms of, a dead period. I think the option should still be out there for those that are sure about their decisions. I think you leave that out there for them because you don't know if the campuses are going to open up at all. So it doesn't make much sense to pull that off the table if somebody's certain of their decision. I think the bigger issues are, if you're committed to, 10 mid-years and, your seniors want to come back and are invited back, how do we manage the roster, right? So let's say I had 10 spots for mid-years, but those 10 seniors want to come back. How are we going to manage the roster, right? Because we'd be theoretically at 95. So, is that up to each institution to decide whether they're going to fund those 10 scholarships? Are you able to carry 95 if there is a spring season and you just have to designate who the 85 on your roster are that are eligible to play? There's a million questions, Tom. I wish I could get to all of them. We probably could go here for an hour on all those things, but those are a couple of my thoughts right now.
The next question is from Omar Urania from Graphico Sports. What would be the role of Robert Hainsey and Liam Eichelberger on and off the field to make an impact with the younger players?
Well, they've been doing it for quite a long time. They're SWAT leaders, which means they have a team of players under their wing, so to speak, and they set a standard for how they're expected to do things on a day-to-day basis. We have we have a mentoring program for those young men that are on their team, and it evolves around, our traits and who we are as a program. And so, every day they're espousing those traits by their own actions and what they do as great role models. And they've done a super job with it. We've got a really strong culture. Our players know what to expect on a day-to-day basis and how to act and what that standard is. And it's been exhibited and on a day-to-day basis and how they've handled themselves. So that's how important they are off the field. On the field, they're two of our best players. And as offensive linemen, if you got two really good tackles that can protect a really good quarterback, lets the head coach get some sleep sometimes.
The next question, both Pete Byrne from WSBT and Allison Hayes from ABC 57 had similar questions, but in what ways was practice different than normal? And to what extent are those differences, obviously they're due to COVID precautions, but any special equipment or PPE being used that you could share with the group?
Yeah, I'd say probably the biggest thing is that, you have your own water bottle. So they're positioned at kiosks throughout the field that is your bottle. Whereas in years past, you had a number of different athletic trainers with water, handing out water. And so, our weight loss, for example, was, exponentially different after a practice like yesterday than it has been at any other time since I've been here. Generally, we'll have between 6 and 8 players lose about 3% body weight. We had 15 to 17. Now, at first glance, you'd be, oh my God, how are you going to battle this? But, we had all day to work on getting that water weight back. But, that's a small thing, but it's important to keep an eye on because you can't continue to lose over 3% of your body weight and water weight because it's going to start to affect you. So that's one thing. I think spraying the footballs down with a disinfectant virtually after every throw with our managers, to help reduce the spread. I think those two things probably stand out the most to me. Other than, of course, every coach has got to have a mask on and having our players have a mask with them around their neck at all times. So if they do take their helmet off, that they've got to try to pull a mask up. And it's recommended that they wear it. We know it's not possible for them to have a mask on all the time, but anytime that they can, we're strongly recommending it.
The next question is from Gary Snyder, and it's regarding the schedule. With such a different schedule than you originally planned for, how does that affect your preparation for the season?
Everybody's dealing with the same situation. I think in terms of preparation relative to football, we're going to get enough football. I mean, we'll get enough practices in. We'll have our team ready. The real challenges are, CDC guideline control in terms of, we've got a locker room, with 120 lockers, and we can only have 50% capacity in that locker room at any one time. So, managing a schedule that, has only 50% capacity in a locker room at one time is quite a challenge. And so it spaces out your day. It's a longer day, and you have to be, on top of it in terms of how you're going to make this work efficiently. We're in a non-contact situation with food service. Everything is to go, and making sure that runs efficiently. So there are many more challenges than, whether we're going to be, executing the scoop block on a 3 technique, and whether we can run, the right coverages in certain situations. We're going to get to that, and we're going to be okay there. It's managing all these other things that can be taxing and consuming and require such a great attention to detail from our players. They have been unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And so how taxing does this become over the long haul? And that's why it's so important that we do so many things to lighten their load in a very difficult situation. So we're challenged in all those other areas, less about the blocking and tackling, though we've been away from it a long time, more about all these other challenges.
You touched on this a little bit on the Today Show yesterday, but what's been your main message to the team as it relates to, their personal accountability with making sure that a season is played?
Well, I think they clearly understand that their human behavior has put them in a position for the university to feel as though they can trust their student athletes to make good choices and good decisions, and that the overall kind of atmosphere here is that we're all in. And in other words, both students and student athletes, we're all in to see that we have a football season. And so I think that they earned that trust in the 6 weeks leading up to the school starting here. I think our administration was making a decision as to, what kind of behavior our football team would have, what kind of attention to detail they would have. And I think they showed that this is very difficult, but if we give them great health care and understand that we need great procedures and protocols and have all the things that are necessary to take care of our student athletes and our staff, that we can do this. And so I think that, coupled with the fact that they're in a very safe environment here, that being involved in this program is very safe. And if they left the program, look, the pandemic and the virus is not going away. You still have to wear a mask. You have to social distance. You still have to do all the things that you would have to do in this program. It doesn't change things for you. We just have more guidelines. We have more safety checks for you. We have specialists for you. We have testing for you. We have a lot of other things to care for you within the program.
The next question is regarding playing in the ACC this year, and where does playing for and capturing a conference championship rank in the season goals?
Well, it's never been part of our goals because this is the first time for us. So we didn't have a column on the goal chart. We'd have to go back and redo it. So our players are excited, though, quite honestly, that they get a chance to play for a championship, an ACC championship. So for the ACC to allow us that opportunity, they're excited about it. They know it's going to be a great challenge. They know that in a large degree, obviously, that runs through Clemson, South Carolina, but there are great challenges on our schedule with some really good football teams that we know are going to be great battles. So we're looking forward to the challenge. I know our kids are excited about playing for a conference championship, but we got a pretty daunting schedule that we've got to take care of 1 week at a time as well.
Okay, Coach, your last question today comes from Austin Huff, and his question is, you and the players in the program are very vocal in speaking out against racism back in June. What things have you and the program done since the Juneteenth rally to keep up the fight against systematic racism?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have a unity council that has been meeting, and we have some things that we're doing internally, and we're not prepared to talk about them right now publicly, but they're pretty exciting. They have to do primarily with they're really about activism. So you'll see them before you hear about them in terms of what our football team's going to be doing, and it'll be over the next month or two. There are two particular events that we're going to be involved in, and we're pretty excited about it. But we're not going to really divulge that information until it gets really close to the event. But Dalen Hayes, as you know, has been involved, and we have a number of other players that have been really instrumental. So it's going to be exciting, and it's going to impact a number of the things that we wanted to address as a football team and a program.
All right. Thanks, Coach. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys, gals.